Tonight on the Fifth Chapter, better late than never, but Matt Stafford finally wants out. So how will it affect the Lions, and who should be at the front of the line for number 9? With an 8-point deficit and just over 2 minutes to go, Matt LaFleur attempts a field goal in the NFC Championship game. So how dumb was the decision, and what do the analytics say? And after 5 cases of the British coronavirus strain pop up at U of M, the Wolverines shut down their entire athletic department for 2 weeks and forced all athletes into quarantine. Smart move or overreaction? Join the conversation by commenting live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. This is the Fifth Chapter with Dennis Fithian and Brian Chapman. He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman, Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter. That's right. Welcome to the Fifth Chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian. We're ready for 5 more fantastic chapters for you on episode 73. And the big question that I have for you, that people have for me and you, is how was your first weekend of mobile sports betting?
Winner!
Yeah, it was almost impossible to be a loser this weekend with all the different promos that were involved. For those that did download some of the apps, there was a promo where you could double your money if there was a touchdown scored in any of the games on Sunday. There was one where you could double your money if the Pistons hit a 3-pointer on either Friday or Saturday. There was one where if the Pistons scored at least 50 points on Saturday in the first quarter, or not the Pistons, if the Pistons and Sixers combined for at least 50 points on Saturday, you would score. Just tons of ways to make easy money, even if some of your other bets weren't hitting.
It's all true. I did have kind of the feeling like I was 12 years old and somebody was giving me a free pack of cigarettes, you know. Hey, here you go. Get yourself started. Like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Hey, they're free.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great way to ensure that people are going to be using your product is to give them like no-brainer bets. And there was another one that I saw. I mean, it was almost overwhelming to keep track of all the different promotions and basically free money bets that you could use. That I actually missed 1 or 2 of them. So definitely want to stay on top of that over the next few days, and have to imagine that over the next week, once those free money bets start to go away, that's when the casinos will start to clean up. Except for me and you, we'll still be making money. But definitely want to thank everybody out there who was tuning in for episode 73. Thanks to all those who are watching via YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch, and to those who are listening to the podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. That is available at approximately 11 o'clock on the day of each show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate in each show by sending in your feedback via Facebook and YouTube. Dennis will be reading it throughout the course of each show. Let's take a look at today's book. As you can see in the second chapter, the Lions are continuing to fill out their front office and their coaching roster. Now that they have Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell in charge, we'll tell you who the new hires are and whether we think that they're going to help this team or they'll keep them right in that SOL mindset. In the third chapter, the most talked about play from NFL Conference Championship weekend was the decision by Matt LaFleur to kick a field goal with a little over 2 minutes to go and an 8-point deficit to cut the deficit to 5. We'll tell you how dumb or smart the decision was, even though the Packers lost that game. In the fourth chapter, Michigan's basketball program and every other program is shut down for 2 weeks because of the British strain of the coronavirus. A wrestler for the Michigan athletic program had a tweet in response to that, along with some others that endorsed that. We'll tell you what that was and how they feel about it and whether it was an overreaction by Michigan. And then, of course, in the fifth chapter, it's the major wager, which, of course, is more important than ever since we have mobile betting here in the state of Michigan. But Dennis, let's start off with the first chapter, and that takes us to the same old Lions. Matt Stafford has been with the Detroit Lions for 12 years, but he will not be in Detroit for a 13th year. That's because on Saturday, reports came out that the Lions and Stafford had mutually agreed to part ways and seek a trade to get Stafford out of town. Additionally, Dave Burkett of the Detroit Free Press added this little nugget. League source says Matthew Stafford approached the Lions after the season, suggested a trade may be in the interest of both parties, and the Lions agreed this week to explore that option. So the initial report was that it was mutual, but it wasn't mutual until after Matt Stafford approached the Lions, whether you want to call it demanding a trade or requesting a trade. And if you ask me, it was probably 4 or 5 years too late and one contract extension too late, but it's finally happening. And the same old Lions are going to trade one of the wealthiest athletes in the history of the world away. As for where he could go, there are potential suitors out there. Here is a tweet from Sportsline.com, or from Sportsline on Twitter, which has the odds on potential suitors. Indianapolis Colts at plus 250 are the favorites, followed by the Denver Broncos at plus 450, the San Francisco 49ers at plus 500, the New England Patriots at plus 600, and rounding up the top five, the Washington football team at plus 800. And the odds are via Sportsline, which I don't believe has a mobile sports book in the state of Michigan. I also found this article from CBSSports.com about the 5 teams most likely to make a trade for Matt Stafford. And it says at number 5, you got the Denver Broncos. And, of course, that's because Drew Lock took a big step backwards in 2020, completing just 57.3% of his passes. Moving up to number 4, you got the Patriots, because it says right here the Cam Newton experiment did not work. And coming in at number 3, the San Francisco 49ers. They've got Jimmy Garoppolo under contract for another 2 seasons, but obviously he had some injury issues 1 year removed from making the Super Bowl. Number 2, the Indianapolis Colts, which were number 1 on that list of odds at plus 250. Phillip Rivers announced his retirement over the weekend, which is no surprise, and they clearly don't want to hand the reins over to Jacoby Brissett. And then number 1 would be the Washington football team. And here's an interesting nugget. If you missed this over the weekend, Washington hired a new general manager. His name is Martin Mayhew. Martin Mayhew drafted Matt Stafford with his first draft pick back in 2009. And if you remember, just weeks before he was fired from the general manager job with the same old Lions, he said that Matthew Stafford is going to be a Hall of Famer. So perhaps that is the most likely or an excellent destination. But Dennis, what do you think about the news that Stafford is done in Detroit, and where do you think would be a good fit for him?
Well, remember the smoking guns in the off-season one when Stafford put his house up for sale and everybody was like, well, you just got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He said it was because he didn't want his kids running out into the lake. You weren't buying that one.
P.S.
And the other smoking gun was his BFF, Dan Orlovsky, throwing out tweets like all of a sudden, like, somebody's going to go get Matt Stafford after the season. It's like, you could tell that was coming right from the horse's mouth there via his buddy there that's now working for ESPN. So it's not a huge shock that Stafford actually went. However, he went there. They didn't both, like, suddenly just walk into a room and both start, wait, no, you go first. No, you. I'm requesting a trade. Oh, yeah, we're right with you. So, Stafford saying it's time. It was time. Everybody knew it was time for him to move on here. And, as far as, the best suitor, it's going to be a crazy offseason where you can look and half of the league has their quarterbacks in a flux where they could actually be looking for new QBs. I think the most interesting part here is you got Deshaun Watson and maybe Aaron Rodgers. I know Rodgers talked today about
no way.
But the possibility there, those two would move in front of Matt Stafford of teams you'd have to give up more, but that would also cut down on the places and the potential boatload of picks that the Lions could get. So it's at least something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think out of that list right there, I would want to go to the Washington football team if I was Stafford. I know his wife last year when I think it was the Chargers or something, it indicated something about a trade. She was like, "Ooh, Cali." Yeah, right. You got a lot of money living out in San Francisco. That sounds like a pretty good idea. And pretty good football team too. So San Fran, and then the Colts. Colts got the best offensive line in the league, really good running game. Need a couple wide receivers out there, but they're pretty close. They got a really good defense. So I think the 49ers and Colts are the teams that I would want to go to if I was Stafford, and I think those are the teams that are going to come get him.
Yeah, I think it's about time as well. Like I said at the top, I mean, this is something that I've been calling for years. I thought it was dumb to give Matthew Stafford that second contract extension, and I thought it was premature to give him actually that first contract extension because I know a lot of people like to say, oh, he's a top 10, top 5 quarterback. He's not top 10, and he's certainly not top 5. He can be top 5 from game to game. He can also be bottom 10 from game to game. Now you look at him, and he's not what he was 3-4 years ago because he's got injuries on top of that. He's made 1.5 Pro Bowls, but I mean, talk about broken back, finger, all that stuff that he was dealing with at the end of the year. I mean, he's not awful, but for all the money that he's making, $27 million, I know that the number that quarterbacks may keep on going up and up. It just wasn't worth it for a team that was winning 3, 4, 5, 6 games a year. And I think this obviously frees up the Lions to have a true rebuild as opposed to sitting around with a quarterback and they're saying, oh, he's still got a couple more years left in his prime. We have to make sure that we don't completely tear things down because we don't want to just blow these years up or just waste these years for Stafford. So certainly about time, certainly the right decision. It would have been a poor decision to keep him and try to rebuild on the fly for 2 more years, which would have led to 6 wins or less in the first couple of years of the Campbell-Holmes era. When I look at the list of teams, it was interesting to see that CBS Sports and the wagering tweet that we had didn't have them in the same order, but had the exact same top 5. I would actually take San Francisco out because they already have a quarterback with a big contract. And I think that Garoppolo still has 2 years left on his deal, and they're just 1 year removed from making the Super Bowl. I would try to see if he could stay healthy and try to make another run with Garoppolo. My top choice is right up there with yours, and that would be Indianapolis because they don't need the draft picks. They just need to upgrade at quarterback to compete. This past year, they upgraded at quarterback, and they went from 7 wins to 11 wins. If you get Stafford, then perhaps they could go from 11 to 12 wins. And if you win 12 games in the regular season, you're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And they're in a bad division, which certainly helps them out. With Deshaun Watson leaving the division, with the Jacksonville Jaguars likely going to be terrible. They've only got one team in the Tennessee Titans that they have to compete with for the division championship. So Stafford could win a division championship in his first year if he goes to the Colts. I actually like Washington football team. They've got an NFC championship head coach in Ron Rivera. They've got a good defense. They're in a weak division. And if they get Stafford, then Washington is going to have the second best quarterback in the division, and he'd be a lot cheaper than whatever Dak Prescott is going to cost. So I like those 2 teams. I think it'd be interesting if Stafford went to New England. But people always talk about Stafford needs weapons. He's not going to have any weapons in New England. He's just going to have a great coach and a solid defense when the guys come back from coronavirus, skipping out the year for coronavirus. But I think that my top 2 would be Indianapolis, Washington football team, and I like San Francisco as well.
Yeah, well, there's not.
All right, I'm sorry, I don't like San Francisco.
Right, Terry McLaurin's not much of a. He's the only weapon that he would have. I guess Gibson, the running back, is okay, but yeah, it's all defense there. I just don't. They're gonna need it's like the Pats. It's like they don't have any receivers either, so that'd be the one thing. Just looking at it from Stafford's standpoint, I think these teams look at him. It's interesting, you talk about sometimes bottom 10. He's not top 5, not even top 10. It's all over the map. You're just like most of the people that, joined my Twitter feed when we talked about what the compensation was going to be. I said first and second round pick based on what I saw 10 years ago for Carson Palmer when he went from Cincinnati at the same age to Oakland. That's what the Raiders gave up. Now, they actually put a conditional pick on that second round. If they would have gone to the playoffs or something, it could have made 2 first-rounders. More of an emphasis on the passing game now than it was 10 years ago. So I think that that's always been the starting price. You better get a first or second round pick or it's not going to happen. And then there would be people saying, "You kidding me, man? The passing league now, Stafford's way better than Carson Palmer. You better put the bidding to start with 2 first-rounders and a second-rounder." Then there would be others saying, "They'll be lucky to get a third-rounder for this guy. He's a bum." That's just the way it is when it comes down to Matt Stafford. But I think these other teams that are out there, they look at the Lions organization and they say, look, this is a doormat organization. Whatever they think of them, they're thinking, hey, if we can bring a guy like this in, we're going to be able to get a lot more out of him than the doormat Detroit Lions. And they can look and say, look at Ryan Tannehill. He wasn't able to do anything in Miami. He gets into a good situation, and whatever you think of him, pretty good quarterbacks, had pretty good success there in Tennessee. I think a lot of the teams are going to look at the Lions. They're going to look at that Tannehill situation. They're going to say, hey, Stafford's better than what anybody thinks about him, than what he will be able to do with our team than he was with Detroit. And I think that's one of the things that you got to keep in mind.
Well, yeah, certainly if the Lions are going to be trading, and they are going to be trading Matt Stafford, they don't want to get on the call with me on one end of the call saying, "Hey, I'm Brian Chapman representing the Detroit Lions, and Matt Stafford's just an okay quarterback. You don't need to offer more than a third-round pick if you want to get him. You certainly want to get as much as you can get for him. You want to play to those out there that are looking at the upside, play to those out there who think that Matthew Stafford is a great quarterback and boost his value up. That's all about selling. You want to diminish the back injury, diminish the injuries that he had at the end of the year, diminish the rib cage or whatever, and say, oh, it's nothing, don't worry about it. He'll pass his physical with flying colors. What do you want to do? You're just going to sit there and go with Cam Newton if you're the Colts? Of course not. You want to go with Matt Stafford. So if you want Matt Stafford and he's the second best quarterback in the market, then you better give us the first and second round pick or whatever you say. You don't turn down a high offer. I still don't think that the Lions are going to get a first and second round pick for him, and I don't think that that a team that offers a first and second round pick would be giving a fair value. I think they'd be giving up too much. But what's interesting is I saw a little report on Twitter from Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, who talked about 2 issues regarding Matt Stafford. It was not only the compensation for Stafford, but also one thing that could have led Stafford to not demand a trade. And here is what he had to say.
Yeah, and it should be expensive to acquire a quarterback, a starter like Matthew Stafford, a good starter who's got several years left, both on his contract and just as far as playing. It should cost a first rounder or more. I would expect the Lions to at least try to get that. A fascinating little side note here, and I know this is something that Stafford has been considering, and his wife has also been considering really for some time, potentially leaving Detroit, starting somewhere new. Had the Lions retained Darrell Bevell, from what I understand, I do not believe Stafford would have wanted to ask out. I believe he would have wanted to stay there. Instead, it's Anthony Lynn, who is a really coveted offensive coordinator choice. I know several other teams wanted him as well. Lynn lands in Detroit. Bevell goes to Jacksonville, and Matthew Stafford goes somewhere else.
So kind of interesting to hear Ian Rappaport mention the Darrell Bevell angle as if that was like some huge reason for Matt Stafford to stay. We know that Matt Stafford in the past has wanted Jim Bob Cooter to stay, and he got Jim Bob Cooter to stay on as offensive coordinator. But Stafford was willing to sit here for a rebuild, assuming the support is true, if Darrell Bevell was retained as either the offensive coordinator or the head coach. I think a lot of Lions fans are saying it's a good thing they did not retain Darrell Bevell, although there are some Stafford slappies out there that say, oh man, we should have just bowed to his demand. The other thing about that is he said, he mentioned Matt Stafford's wife as being one of the individuals who wanted Darrell Bevell to stay. And you talked about this a little bit earlier, Dennis, a few minutes ago, about how we could see that Stafford wanted to leave because of what his wife was posting on Instagram and what Dan Orlovsky has been tweeting about and saying on ESPN. Because Matt Stafford doesn't say anything of substance when he speaks to the media, the 2 most reliable sources are his wife's Instagram and Dan Orlovsky.
It's true. Kelly Stafford wants out.
Yes.
The governor's a dictator.
My kids are gonna drown in a lake.
she's bitched about the cold in the past. Like, I like Kelly Stafford, but, she wants out. She wants to go to California or she wants to go to the South. Let's be honest there. So she wants to get out of Dodge. The thing about Darrell Bevell, like with Stafford, quarterbacks end up usually liking their offensive or their offensive coordinators. You're right. Stafford was in love with Jim Bob Cooter, and apparently he's in love with Darrell Bevell. But Justin Rodgers came back of the Detroit News and refuted that report. He's got his own little kind of head-to-head thing going with Rappaport over the years, so you can take whatever you want there. But Rodgers was saying that he had talked with people in the Lions organization, conversations, and that's not how it went down. I tend to believe that. I think Stafford wants out. I don't think he was making any demands for Darrell Bevell. What his yards per attempt were up with Darrell, but you know what? So is his interceptions were way down with JBC, and he'll love his next offensive coordinator and wherever he's going to go in. So interesting report, but I'm not buying that from Rappaport.
Yeah, it did seem kind of strange. If you want out, if you've been putting all these signals out, I can't imagine that retaining an offensive coordinator while you're going through this rebuild, or having Darrell Bevell come in with a new general manager going through some sort of rebuild is going to make you say, all right, I'm willing to go through another double-digit loss season or two while we try to get things on the right track and my health is starting to fail. This is something that whether Bevell was staying or not, Stafford needed to get out.
Yeah, this is just too long. Like, I like Matt Stafford. I think he was a little bit better than what that you give him, but there's a lot of people that are like you, But he was an enigma. He was all over the place. I can sit around and talk about how you needed to surround him with more players and they could have won, and yet there were some of those seasons that he was part of the problem. So, it's he's not the greatest guy out there, but I do think that the greatest quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback, but I do think that he would be an upgrade over Phillip Rivers for the Colts. And I also think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think is pretty average. Although, like I said, Stafford sometimes is, part of the problem, and his new team will figure that out. Although that new team is probably figuring out that's just with the Lions because they suck. But look, yes. it would have been very SOL to keep him around. Like the new staff, which we're going to get to coming up in the second chapter. Everybody, excited about starting something new, but it got old. The O and SOL, it just got old having Stafford, be the quarterback again and let's go through it. He's good. No, he's not really that good. Oh, we got to put weapons around him. Oh, he's got the double broken back, all those things. It really was time to move on. I'm glad that they are moving on.
So what kind of feedback are we getting about Stafford demanding this trade?
No feedback at all. I'm just kidding. We got a lot coming in here. And Jim Clark is on Facebook watching. That's a sweat hog from Brightmoor.
Okay.
Rolling in there. Good to see him in there. One of my family members, Melissa Nettles, out there watching as well. It's all good, man. I like that. I've given a couple shout outs, people saying actually hi, they're on Facebook. I'll give them a shout out. All right, the live chat on YouTube. Let's get to the beginning here. Brian Jelinek is back, our intern. He is monitoring the live chat, and he says the Colts, without a doubt, and he's a damn good team with Stafford, they will be a Super Bowl favorite. Chap?
Yeah, I think that they could be a Super Bowl favorite as well. Like I said, they upgraded at quarterback and went from 7 wins to 11 wins. And if you upgrade again at quarterback from a guy who cannot make all the throws in Phillip Rivers, but was better than the guy that they had, to a guy that in Matt Stafford who has more arm talent, then you should be able to go from 11 wins to 12 wins. So if they go to 12 wins, then they are a Super Bowl contender. They're going to be in that weak division. They're not going to have to deal with Deshaun Watson, who was on a bad team even when he was there. So, yeah, I think they are going to be there. And in terms of the weapons, they've got themselves a decent running game with Jonathan Taylor. If they want to get another weapon out there, maybe they go get Kenny Golladay. Obviously, they're not going to have whatever pick they're going to send to the Detroit Lions, but maybe they go get Kenny Golladay if the Lions don't franchise him, or if the Colts want to send even more picks by matching the deal, depending on what the franchise tag is.
Yeah, they got some. T.Y. Hilton, I think he's a little long in the tooth. Was it Pittman that they drafted last year? Paris Campbell, a Buckeye, looked like he had some promise there. But those guys mostly look like good twos right now. They would be in need of legit one. But, I agree. They'd be a Super Bowl contender if they would get Stafford. Keith is on the feedback here saying, typical Lions, that news about trading your quarterback is leaked. Needed to keep that quiet so that you have some leverage. I really don't care what they do. This is 2 to 3 years too late. That sounds like you, Chet.
It is late, but it's better late than never, because it would be an inferior situation to wait until after 2021 to try to trade him with, I think, 1 year left on his deal. Because, I mean, they would either have to extend him before the upcoming season or extend him right after the 2021 season. And who knows what kind of injuries he would sustain in that rebuilding year.
M.AT, Matt here on the feedback says Matthew Stafford is an elite quarterback as far as pure skills. Trade him to my 49ers. Now, you know what? There's only a handful. It depends what your definition of an elite quarterback is. He says as far as pure skills. Like, he's got the great arm, but we've also seen, like, the elite quarterbacks are able to not only have the elite arm strength, but also the elite decision making and everything that goes along with that. And he falls short. Like, it's not to criticize Matt Stafford, but even as far as his pure skills, you want to say he has an elite arm? I'll buy that. But what else is elite? What else are you putting down as elite when it comes down to Matt Stafford?
The other thing is, Stafford's never been a statue, but he was more mobile earlier on in his career. And I don't think anyone's going to call him Tom Brady right now, but he can't run the way that he used to. And he certainly can't run like a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, guys like that. So he is mostly a drop-back quarterback, and quarterbacks are becoming more mobile. He's becoming less mobile.
Yeah, he's tough, and he's got a big arm. He's been outside. The 2011, you could call him an elite quarterback for that 1 year. That was a long time ago. A couple of years ago when he had all those comebacks, that was really good and a nice thing to put on his resume. But you remember those last 3 games of the year is when it was all going to come down to the Cowboys, to the Giants, and to the Packers, and they lost all 3 of those games. And, he couldn't get it done there. And that's an elite quarterback finds a way to get it done in those games. Aaron Rodgers always has his number in those big games when it comes down to winning the division and beating them when they come down head-to-head at the end of the year. There's no way. Like, you want to call his arm elite? You can, but that's it when it comes down to the elite part for Matt Stafford.
Agreed.
All right. Keith says they may be able to get a first and a player in a late-round pick, and he's not elite. Good, strong, veteran quarterback who lacks accuracy. Roger, any chance Stafford gets traded inside the division? Interesting. The Bears need a quarterback. I know you don't think Rodgers is going anywhere. I don't really think so either, but it's fun to talk about. Those would be the two, because we know that the Vikings are staying with Captain Kirk. What about trading? What if the Bears come up with multiple first-round picks, and would you send them to Windy City?
Why not? You're getting multiple first-round picks. You could sit there with 3 first-round picks. You get yourself Justin Fields and 2 defensive players, or Justin Fields and let Kenny Galladay go, a wide receiver and something. Yes, I would take that if I was the Detroit Lions. But I don't think the Bears are gonna want to move on from Mitch Trubisky, because he had a decent end of the season. And if they are going to move on from Mitch Trubisky, I don't think they're going to want to move on from a less mobile quarterback. And as far as the Packers are concerned, I think Aaron Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show and said that he was just kind of being emotional. And then the general manager or CEO, whatever he was, for the Packers also came out earlier today and said there's no way they're getting rid of Aaron Rodgers.
Famous last words. If the Bears are going to just, mortgage the future and give out multiple first-round picks, they might as well give a couple more multiple first-round picks and get into the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes.
Yeah.
In baseball, you talk about, trading a guy into the division if it's the best deal. But, man, in football, having to see that team 2 times a year, I cannot see the Lions trading Matt Stafford in the division. So I would
You're
say that
not
there's a
trading an
chance.
elite talent. You're trading an average quarterback who's on the downside of his career and is
That's what
making
you
too
think.
much money.
That's not what
That
the Lions think.
that's correct. And they shouldn't think that as they're trading him away, but that's the way he is. So you trade him away. If he beats you in 2021, it's because you suck. So it's not that big of a deal if he beats you in 2021, but you're rebuilding for 2022, 2023 and beyond. Who's Matt Stafford going to be in those years? Who cares if the Bears win 12 games and win the Super Bowl with Stafford in 2021?
Oh,
You're
who
not
cares?
competing anyway.
Oh man, who cares? Every Lions fan and everybody in that Lions front office, man, they would get crucified if it ended up being like that. It's not going to happen. So I'll put it as a 0% chance of Matt Stafford going to the Bears. All right, Matt, how are Lion fans throwing Stafford under the train when they're saying he's worth a first-round pick? Which one is it? By the measuring stick Stafford haters use, he's worth a fifth rounder.
Well, that's why I sit here and say that the demand for Stafford cannot be multiple first-round picks, because I am not of the belief that Stafford is some elite player. If you get a second and a fourth-round pick for Stafford, then and that's the best offer. I'm not saying that's the first offer, but if that's the best offer, a second and a fourth-round pick, maybe you throw a fifth-rounder in there as well, or a second and two fourths, I would take that.
Yeah, I don't think the Lions will, and I wouldn't. Like, this would be a very SOL thing that he actually, all of this pomp and circumstance, and he ends up coming back to Detroit because nobody wants to cough up a first rounder.
That would be SOL.
It would be. But I think somebody is going to meet the demands, and there is a little bit of a bidding war out there. I think a first and second round pick. It's very comparable to the Palmer sweepstakes, and and it is more of a passing league. I guarantee that the Lions will get at least a first and second round pick.
At least a first and second.
Yeah, guaranteed.
Wow.
Mark it down. Mark the part on this tape. Jelinek, let's go.
Well, and then you have to wonder, if that's true, how much more valuable is Deshaun Watson going to be? Is he going to be worth at least 2 first and 3 second round picks?
Well, I'll tell you, I saw Pro Football Focus. I also saw Wojo put out what the Lions could do to get Deshaun Watson, which is a nice thing to talk about, but it would be stupid in reality for the Lions because they're in the same situation as the Texans. Texans gave away all their picks. They don't have anything around Deshaun Watson, and so they're stuck. And so they would trade him. They would get the Lions would the proposal was the 7th pick, which the Lions have in the first round, and Stafford, and then another first rounder next year and a second rounder. And I believe that Stafford's worth a first and second. So it ended up being 3 first rounder, three ones, and 2 second round picks is what Wojo and Pro Football Focus put the value if you're using the first and second round for Stafford. Would I give up 3 first, 3 ones, and 2 twos for Deshaun Watson? I wouldn't, because you're unless you're sitting there and you feel like you're just a quarterback away that you can almost guarantee yourself a Super Bowl. Yeah. That's when you put something crazy like that out there. If you can get the quarterback right, but if you have to be in that position. Of course, the Lions are not in that position. So if you're a team that's got tons of draft picks, like the Dolphins, like they're sitting over there, they do have some of that, and they can put Tua into the mix. There might be a situation there where you have multiple picks already to play with. But, no, not for the Lions. And that's what it takes. I mean, that's what it's going to take. It's going to be pretty close to that if somebody ends up, getting Deshaun Watson.
That's a lot of compensation.
5 picks.
Yeah.
3 ones.
Speaking of compensation, check out this one last tweet, and it's from Michael David Smith. And he works for Pro Football Talk, like you mentioned. Matt Stafford made $226 million from 2009 to 2020. Tom Brady made $196 million from 2009 to 2020. Matt Stafford made $30 million more dollars. How many more Super Bowls did he win than Tom Brady? How many more playoff wins did he get than Tom Brady?
Yeah, well, when it comes down to the money, if you remember, only one quarterback was in a better position ever than Matt Stafford, and it was Sam Bradford. As when Sam Bradford went the next year, where did he go, to the Rams? The following year, it was Cam Newton who was the number one pick. They made the depressed rookie scale.
Mm-hmm.
You were getting banked, with $90 million, and I think Bradford got more than that. And after that, it was a third or a fourth of the guaranteed money that Cam Newton was getting before they went to that depressed rookie scale. You didn't want a first round pick; it cost too much, and that was just that was the thing. Like, as a Lion fan, you looked at, when they were up there, you didn't want high first round picks. Lions had Stafford, Kelvin, Sue. They couldn't afford all those. If it would have been 2 or 3 years later where they would have been really bad,
Mm-hmm.
well, now that's everybody's ticket. Get a quarterback on a rookie deal. Get Kelvin on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
Get Sue on a rookie deal.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, they couldn't afford them. That's all they had. So that kind of the Lions have always been bad, so that they fit into that situation, it's not that big of a surprise.
All right, let's turn the page to the second chapter.
All right, we'll continue to read your feedback. They're coming in on Stafford. This gets us, as we stay with the Lions, a lot of Lions news, as you know. If you've been following anything this week, Lions not only hired their new head coach and their general manager last week, but they just continue to add and known, proven names to their front office and coaching staff, as it already has been established on all of these shows, and even on this show here tonight. Chapman, you are one of the most jaded Lion commentators I know. But how do you feel about all of these additions to the front office and to the coaching staff for the Detroit Lions?
And just so people know, the additions include former Chargers head coach Anthony Lynn as the offensive coordinator, former Saints defensive backs coach Aaron Glenn as the defensive coordinator, former Philadelphia Eagles assistant head coach Deuce Staley as assistant head coach and running backs coach, and former Chiefs and Browns general manager John Dorsey as senior personnel executive. And there's one more I wrote down. Oh, here we go. Former Rams director of pro scouting Ray Agnew as the Lions assistant general manager. So a lot of new names coming in, and they've got a lot of spots to fill. So, but I was not a big fan of the hires for general manager and head coach. I gave each of them a C minus. Not terrible grades, but certainly not good either. But I liked the decisions made by Holmes after hiring Campbell Moore. Certainly I liked the decision to agree to Matthew Stafford's trade demand. But you look at the names that we just talked about. At defensive coordinator, they get a guy who's coached some pretty good defensive backs in New Orleans and coached one of the best defenses in the NFL in 2020. So perhaps he can get the best out of the Lions' young defensive backs. They got Will Harris, who was on a rookie deal. They got Amani Oruwariye on a rookie deal. They've got Jeff Okudah on a rookie deal. So if he can coach those guys up, and you have to figure anybody can coach the guys up from the past regime based on how bad it was, worse in the NFL, then maybe that could work out. And that's kind of the guy that I'm least excited about, because he's just a defensive backs coach. But you look at offensive coordinator, they bring in Anthony Lynn, and the Chargers didn't have a great season, but it wasn't awful. They were 7-9, and 7-9 is it's typically not a record that you have if you're about to get fired. But when you're a black coach, you could win 7 games, you could win 9 games in consecutive years, and you get fired. But that's another story. Lynn has experience as a former head coach, and when you look at Dan Campbell, he has only 12 games as an interim head coach, and he was an assistant head coach. So bringing in a guy in Lynn who has experience as a head coach is a positive. I think that can complement him. Obviously, he can call plays because he was a head coach and he's an offensive guy. That can help out. And then third of all, this is very important, he developed Justin Herbert into a guy who's likely going to win the Rookie of the Year, had 31 touchdowns, and the Lions are likely going to draft a quarterback. There was a new mock draft out by Mel Kiper Jr., his NFL mock draft 1.0, and he had the Lions drafting Justin Fields. Wouldn't it be great to have a guy who's proven to develop a rookie quarterback into a guy who's good in his first year as the offensive coordinator? There's also, of course, the possibility of drafting Zach Wilson. You look at Deuce Staley. and he was a good running back in the '90s, back in the day. But he coached Miles Sanders, he coached Boston Scott, so perhaps he can get the best out of DeAndre Swift. He also brings in the experience as an assistant head coach, because that's what he was for the Eagles. So more to leadership, more experience, and I didn't like that the general manager didn't have any experience in evaluating anything more than college players, but they bring in John Dorsey, who was the general manager of 2 franchises, so he has experience doing everything. So I like the fact that Holmes didn't add to his inexperience with more inexperience. He complemented that with a lot of experience, and he complemented the Dan Campbell inexperienced hire with lots of experience. So I would as far as a grade, certainly better than a C-, probably about an A- for these hires.
Yeah, I like all the moves. I would agree. Put it in the A range. Dorsey's experience speaks for itself there. The only thing the Lions could do to make this an A+ is reassign Rod Wood, and get him out from the podium. If they did that, man, I would be on board and couldn't believe it. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I know there were some rumors a couple of days ago. It's like there's going to be some kind of shift in the front office. Keep an eye out. I think it ended up being Agnews, the person that they brought in, or maybe it was Dorsey. I don't remember. But I was thinking, man, maybe they're going to come out and they're going to say that Rod Woods could push himself into the.
You hate Rod Wood with a passion.
Well,
you hate him like he's a Buckeye or a Spartan.
It starts at the top. He's been he's a symbol of the cronyism. But even even with Rod Wood up there, he's a good communicator. He does fine when he stands up there. He looks good in his gray suits, and he's able to say what he's supposed to say there. So if these guys have any. And they have experience in there. They're going to take Rod Wood, any kind of communication, even though they're supposed to report to him and say, "Look, Rod, So I think that with the hires they made, it's even Rod Wood and the Ford cronyism, I don't think is going to be able to taint it. So I feel pretty good about that. I think the one thing that you have to remember is, winning in the off season and building this the right way. It all sounds good, it feels good, but things are going to get worse before they get better. And how's that going to be in a year's time? We're all going to sit around talking about how great the front office and how great the coaching staff looks.
Oh, they'll fail.
After they go 4-12. I know you like it. I mean, you're all set. Hey, 3-13 is going to be great. They just post that 3-13 when you know it's coming. Is it going to feel better? That's what you have to ask yourself.
Here's the real question. If you were walking in downtown Detroit and you were just eating a sandwich that you picked up at a local restaurant, you got about halfway done and you were full, and you saw Rod Wood homeless by a trash can, would you give him the half-eaten sandwich or put it in the garbage?
Yeah, well, I would give Rod Wood.
You don't hate him that much.
No, I hate the symbol of the cronyism for the Fords. It's been the problem, for the organization. The old man, that was his problem, hiring drinking buddies and, just keeping guys around, not worried about all that. Martha Ford the same way, everybody, people brown nose and, you got to be good with the bosses, but I've never seen it anywhere like, being down with the Ford organization. Maybe they, maybe they did recognize it's like that, and while they're keeping the, Wood in place, they're making the decisions, to take themselves out of the loop that way. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous. It's if it all does start at the top. Dan Campbell kept mentioning it. You have a Ford there, and then you have the biggest problem with the Ford is how they've run their football team, and the way that Wood came out of this with more power. But look, I like all the coaching staff, and I like the front office move. So maybe all of that supplants, Wood being up there. I don't know. Well, let's get to some of the feedback and let's move on.
Well, I was just gonna say I still don't understand why they hired Chris Spielman and then they barely mention him as if he's just some sort of puppet and say, "See, we got a Lions legend here." But that's just the Lions. Also interesting
because he's the one that's been making all the moves,
Well, why
And
not give him some credit? Why not let him talk?
because then it was going to look like, they just handed the franchise over to Spielman. That's why.
That's
Because
a good thing, right? If you're a Lions fan, that's what you think. Do you feel more confident if it looks like Rod Wood is running things or if it looks like Chris Spielman's running things?
Well, I think the Wood probably, wanted some of that DAP, wanted some of that credit there, and Spielman
That's fine.
didn't, so.
Just let Spielman in too to talk. I mean, now he might feel slighted when the media has all these questions for Spielman, and then Rod Wood's like, "Well, I want to comment on this," and then the media's like, "No, we want to ask the football guy."
Well, everybody
this.
knows who's calling the shots. I mean, I think that's what it came down to there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Doesn't matter. The Lions could get 3 first-round picks, and they still won't do anything good. I'm surprised thinking we're going to be better. That is from K. Salty. Let's see. Stafford to the Saints, best thing for him. I hope he goes there the most. This one is from Sideshow Raj. Good to see him. I know he's doing a podcast or a video show. Have to get on there. He says, Chappie was right about Poirier. McGregor messed up my parlays.
I told you, I put money on Dustin Poirier. He won. Once again, Conor McGregor has not won a big fight since the Obama administration. I tweeted that out over the weekend, and some idiot said, "Oh, you forgot that Conor McGregor won a fight last year." It wasn't a big fight. It was against washed-up Donald Cerrone. The only other fight that he had during the Trump administration was a loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov, and everybody loses to him. Other than that, all Conor McGregor's been doing is running around the world committing crimes and saying, "Buy my whiskey," and boxing and all this other stuff, but he hasn't focused on MMA. And what happened? We saw he looked pretty good boxing on Saturday night, but once he got to the second round, he got tired again, and Poirier, who's actually been fighting the last 4 years, won.
Good job on that one. The front office has made decent assistant hires. Amazing. Best hire since Jerry Vanisi. That's from Kenneth. Let's see. None of these QBs will help. Should have gotten Justin Herbert last year. I do like some of the hires, but it won't matter. Sheila won't sell her soul, a.k.a. pay for a top coach. That's why they didn't get Salah. K. Salty hates Rod Wood, too. 4 and 12,
give him a sandwich?
LOL. 4 and 12. First team to go 0 and 16. Let's see. Jelinik's agreeing with K. Salty. Herbert would have been the best fit for Detroit. Yeah, that would have been the pick. If the Lions were making a quarterback selection last year, it would have been Tua, though. So,
well, think about this. Had they drafted Tua or Herbert, Patricia would be getting a pass. Although, interesting enough, the individual you see up there, African-American Anthony Lynn, had a rookie quarterback in the top 10, won 7 games, and didn't get a pass and was fired.
Good point. Beth on Facebook says Aaron Rodgers isn't always great in the playoffs, especially at home. Well, stay tuned because we are going to get to Aaron Rodgers and that NFC Championship game coming up in this next chapter, Beth.
Yes, we are. Did you want to turn the page right now?
Let's do it.
All right, that takes us to the 3rd chapter. And everybody knew that it was going to be a Packers win and an easy win going into the NFC Championship game. When we did the major wager on Thursday, each of us picked the Packers to win and to win easily. I thought it was easy money if you were betting on it. And you look at what transpired in the game. Brady played well. The Tampa Bay defensive line was outstanding, blowing through that Packers offensive line off the edge. The Green Bay defense played poorly in the first half. The defense did not, for some reason, play prevent defense on the final play of the first half to give the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a bonus 7 points. But they still had a shot in that fourth quarter because Tom Brady, the quote-unquote GOAT, threw 3 interceptions in the second half. Now, the Packers had a couple of 3-and-outs off of some of those interceptions, but because Brady did not play well in the second half, they had a shot with 4:42 to go. Tampa Bay kicked the field goal to go up by 8, 31-23, and the Packers, all they needed to do was score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion to tie the game up. They had the best offense in the NFL this season with 222 to go. They got that 1st and goal on the Buccaneers 8. They couldn't get a touchdown after 3 straight incomplete passes. So on 4th and goal, obviously they're going for it, but instead, Matt LaFleur got the bright idea to kick a field goal. Best quarterback in NFL history. I'll throw the arguably word in there. Best offense in the NFL this season. Pro Bowl wide receiver, and he kicks a field goal to cut the deficit to 31-26. The Packers did not get the ball back. After the game, Packers coach Matt LaFleur was asked to explain his decision to kick the field goal, and here is what he had to say for himself.
What went into the decision to kick the field goal there on 4th and 8, and do you regret that in hindsight?
Yeah, anytime it doesn't work out, you always regret it, right? But it was just the circumstances of having 3 shots and coming away with no yards, and knowing that you not only need the touchdown, but you'd need the 2-point. So the way I was looking at it was essentially had 4 timeouts with the 2-minute warning. And, you know, we knew we needed to get a stop. And I thought we were going to have a stop there at the end, but, you know, we got called for the PI. And it didn't work out. So I think anytime something doesn't work out, do you regret it? Sure. But we're always going to be process driven here. And the way our defense was battling, the way our defense was playing, I felt like it was the right decision to do. And it just didn't work out.
So there was Matt LaFleur's little explanation about why he went for it. And as a matter of fact, before we get your I'll save the analytics for just a moment. But Dennis, what do you think of Matt LaFleur's explanation for kicking the field goal as opposed to letting Aaron Rodgers get one more chance from the 8?
Well, you can take those analytics and shove them up your ass. Same where Matt LaFleur can. You know, everybody knew when you're watching that game that was a stupid mistake. The thing that I was thinking as I was watching it, like as it was happening, I'm like, all right, let's just say that, Brady, he wasn't considering, was he going with game flow? He had thrown 3 picks, so, we thought we had him. We're going to really play to our defense here, Even if that happened and the Packers did come down and score, I'd have said, man, LaFleur, that was the ballsiest move that I've ever seen. And you know what? You've heard people say, like, yeah, it's the ballsiest move that I've ever seen. The ramifications on a ballsy move, if it doesn't work, you get ripped to shreds when it doesn't. And that's what happened here. Like, anybody that knows the essence of sports, when you're talking about you have a great player, you want to have that player be able to decide the game, whatever game. I haven't seen something this stupid since the World Series. Put another one in the loss column for analytics. Kevin Cash took the L of the World Series when he pulled Blake Snell, and Matt LaFleur, he should just walk around with a big L on his forehead. I mean, field goals are for losers, and he should get a big L tattooed on his forehead. Yeah, it was a ballsy decision, and going with the analytics. Do the analytics put anything in there that you got the MVP at home sitting there from the 8-yard line? And oh yeah, on the other side you get the GOAT. Don't give me the hogwash with the analytics. Save that if that was the correct move. Coaches that keep going, managers that take guys out that are pitching like Sandy Koufax in the World Series, and head coaches that have one of the greatest quarterbacks, the greatest quarterback on the other side, and one of the great quarterbacks going for your side, and you decide to kick the field goal, you're going to be out of a job.
Well, he's not going to be out of a job after consecutive 13-win seasons and going to the you would fire him after consecutive 13-win seasons, the number 1 offense in the regular season, and getting to the NFC Championship game?
Yes, I would. And when Aaron Rodgers maneuvers his way out of Green Bay, everybody's going to agree with me.
Wow. Well, I would not do that. But as far as the analytics are concerned, here's a tweet about the analytics from Seth Wilder of ESPN. He's an ESPN sports analytics writer. Well, here's what it says. We preferred go, but more narrowly than I would have thought. Win probability to go is at 10%. Win probability if you kick the field goal is at 9.5%. So it was a better win probability if you went for it. But I don't think that, like you mentioned, does include if you've got the number one offense in the NFL run
That's
by.
the problem with analytics, Chap. I got to interrupt you. Like, I saw 2 other reputable analytics guys on there saying that one was saying there was a 1.5% better chance if you kick the field goal, and one other math nerd was saying it was a 3%. These guys can't even get the math right.
Well, the ESPN math nerd said that you had a better chance to win the game, 10% as opposed to 9.5%. But I think that when you consider that it's Aaron Rodgers who's throwing the football, and it's not just like a league average offense or a league average quarterback, maybe that number goes up to 15%, maybe it goes up to 20%. You're just talking about Aaron Rodgers being able to complete one 8-yard pass, and what are the odds that he's going to go 0 for 4 on completing an 8-yard pass? I don't think that's very likely. So I think it was a dumb decision, and I knew when they attempted to go for the field goal that the Packers were likely not going to get the ball back until next season, and that's exactly what transpired. You don't give the ball back to the number 2 quarterback in NFL history on the other side, who always finds some way somehow, whether it's a controversial referee call or it's a crazy comeback down 25 points in the Super Bowl. He's always going to find a way, and you could argue that it was a ridiculous late penalty on the pass interference. Honestly, it should have been called defensive holding because it was not a catchable ball.
It was a penalty.
It was a penalty, but it should have been defensive holding. But by hook or by crook, if you give Tom Brady an opportunity, odds are he's going to find a way to do it. Not trusting Aaron Rodgers, not trusting a guy who's the best of all time, in my opinion, even if you think he's just somewhere in the top 5, was a really dumb decision. LaFleur's had a great year, but he made a bad decision, and it wasn't just a bad decision. Matt LaFleur had a terrible game. How do you go with man-to-man coverage at the end of the first half as opposed to lining up 2-3 guys, if not 4 guys, with cover 3 or cover 4 prevent defense on the goal line? You got burned not by Mike Evans, not by Chris Godwin, but by Scotty Miller for a touchdown. How do you do that? How do you keep going 3 and out after the Brady interception? Think about this. You got 3 timeouts and a 2-minute warning. How do you not call at least one running play when you have the ball before the 2-minute warning to try to get a little bit closer? If you pick up 5 yards on 2nd down, it's a heck of a lot easier on 4th down to go for it when you've got just 3 yards to get. I would point my bony finger of blame if I was a Packers fan directly at Matt LaFleur, not just for that call, but for a litany of things that he did or did not do during that game.
Yeah, hey, Michigan's former defensive coordinator Don Brown thought that Mike Pettine's defense was ridiculous there at the end of the half. And it was. And here's the thing with analytics. Like, we all like analytics to look at a different way to look at the game and everything. But as we saw in the World Series, when you become a slave to those numbers, it boggles your mind. You can't, just like in the World Series, you couldn't figure out, you had somebody that was in the zone, and even the numbers actually in the World Series didn't actually pointed for you not taking Snell out. Just like the numbers here, you have to look at the quarterback that you have, and you have to look at the quarterback on the other side. Sure, game flow, but are you really going to tell me you thought that Brady was going to throw another interception? And anybody that was complaining about it, and I saw plenty of people, Dave Burkett, who I really like for the Free Press, he must have had money on the game. He was over there couldn't believe, oh my God, they're letting things go all game and they're going to call that? Yeah, the shirt's being pulled like that. What do you think?
It should have been holding. It was not a catchable ball.
Is holding a first down?
Yes, but they didn't call holding.
Well, whatever. It was a penalty.
Fair.
So all of those that I kept seeing, were driving me nuts. But this is where analytics fails you again, man. Not only do you have Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's going to be the MVP. He had his best season at home. I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, really? You're not going to live and die with your quarterback?
Yeah, it was
one of the greatest ever. It's not like you had
Stafford.
No, I wouldn't want to say Mitchell Trubisky or something over there.
Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, no, I get your point. But how much of this How much of this game do you put on Aaron Rodgers? His final numbers: 33 of 48, 346 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception. Was sacked 5 times. When people look at this game years from now, and obviously when they look at it now, they're going to say Brady versus Rodgers. But how much do you put on the guy who I think is the GOAT in Rodgers?
Well, I would credit Shaq Barrett and JPP from the Bucs being able to harass him and get into the backfield. He didn't throw interceptions all year long, except he threw 3 against the Bucs, and he threw that one that ended up setting up that Scotty Miller touchdown. The Bucs were able to turn those picks into points, and that was the difference in the game.
Well, Rodgers threw 1 interception. It was Brady who threw 3 picks.
Well, the pick that he threw there at the end of the half, that's the one they turned into points. They weren't able to do that. You sure he didn't throw more than 1?
Yeah, Brady threw 1. Rodgers threw 1 interception. Brady
Check
threw
the
3.
box score, Jelinek. How many interceptions?
Okay,
did he throw?
I've got the box score ready. I'll put it right up on the screen. There you can see Brady 3 interceptions, Rodgers 1 interception.
Yeah, well, I put that interception that the Bucs were able to turn into points. He hadn't thrown. What, did he throw 3 all year long? Was that the thing? And then maybe it was the prior game that he threw multiple interceptions against the Bucs. So I think what the point was is that he threw 3 all year long, and then he threw 3 against Tampa, probably 2 in the previous meeting, and then the 1 there on Sunday. But I saw the receivers for the Bucs, Godwin dropping passes, Evans dropping passes there for Tampa Bay. And, Devontae Adams, like, they were down there. Aikman, his best call of the game, is like, oh, man, this is going to be a turnaround. This is taking candy from a baby. Sure enough, it was right there. Over to Devontae Adams. They always make that hookup. What did he do? He dropped the ball. It should have went right back to that play. But, you're going to have to take some of that heat when you're the starting quarterback. But I'd give more credit to the defensive ends for the Bucs on just being able to. Remember, Bakhtiari, the number 1 rated left tackle this year by Pro Football Focus, out for the year before the playoffs. Huge hit there for the Packers. They couldn't make it up.
Yep. Yeah, one thing where I put some blame on Aaron Rodgers, and you also have to remember Equanimeous St. Brown dropped that 2-point conversion. How much perhaps that would have changed the thinking by Matt LaFleur to go for that field goal. And if they were only down by 8 instead of 6 and they kicked the field goal, maybe it makes a little bit more sense to go for it. I still would have tried to take the lead. But the other thing is, if you remember on that 3rd and goal play, Aaron Rodgers stepped up in the pocket and he had space to run. Now, he's not as fast as a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes, but could he have at least gotten 4 yards? Yes. If he shakes a man, if he could stiff arm and dive, could he potentially get to the end zone? Yes. But he threw it right as he got to within 1 yard or 2 of the line of scrimmage. I thought he should have run, which I thought would have made it a heck of a lot easier to go for it on 4th, but he didn't.
Well, there's your best point of the show. I think you're right about that. He certainly could have got down there by the 2. Maybe he could have made it in. So I'm right with you on that. A lot of feedback coming in on this. Rod Wood. Aaron forgot he could run the ball. LOL. K. Salty. Real soft for LaFleur to go for the field goal instead of the TD. That was very Vrabel-esque. That's from Jelinek, the intern, on the instant feedback. Or on the live chat, I should say. Keith, such a bad decision. They couldn't stop him all day, especially in the second half. Even if you don't score, Tampa takes over deep in their own territory.
Yes.
Good point on the field position. You got to pin down there. I thought maybe that they would try an onside kick, even though that's like a 8% chance. You got to stop them. You can't give up that first down. And why not kick the try an onside kick there? Tampa only punted twice. 6 all regular season, 3 versus Tampa, 3 total versus everybody together. It's from K. Salty doing the numbers there. Good job, K. Salty. And we got Beth's. Let's make sure we read this one. Beth's saying, "Great point, Dennis."
Hey, you
Thanks,
make
Beth.
one every once in a while. So how about that?
I got one.
Yep.
I got
So
one in there.
you complimented what you thought was my best point of the show, and she complimented you for a point.
Hey, you know what? We're all getting good points in. That's the bottom line on it, right?
All right, you ready to turn the page to the 4th chapter?
I am, and that is going to get us to something that has happened here in Michigan athletics. They shut everything down on Saturday night because of the, let me look at it, B117 variant of COVID. How do you think this is going to affect Michigan sports? They've got their basketball teams that are highly rated. The men's team in the rated number 4. Hockey team is doing really well across the board there. How do you think this affects Michigan athletics?
Well, I think this is a lot bigger than Michigan athletics. And for those that are wondering, the B117 strain is, I think it's like the scientific term for the British strain of the coronavirus. And
say it with an English accent.
It's the British strain of the coronavirus. And the reason
the B0117 variant.
That's correct. And the reason that it's more troublesome is just because it's 50% more transmissible. And when you consider the fact that there have been 600,000 cases in the state of Michigan since the pandemic started, if it had all been the UK strain, we'd be talking about nearly 900,000 cases. Therefore, we have to get rid of the British strain. One of the things that is important to consider is that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services sent a letter to the U of M athletic department on the 23rd recommending a pause in all athletics for 14 days. That's correct. For 14 days, and a quarantine for all athletes, coaches, and staff. 14 days. It was a recommendation, not an order. And when an official from the University of Michigan was asked, from the health department was asked, if Michigan would serve any penalties should they decide not to take the advice of the MDHHS, they said there'd be no penalties. But the reason this is so important is because it is 50% more transmissible. And yes, for the University of Michigan, this is troublesome because you see that they are the number 4 basketball team in the country, and this puts a stop at their momentum. The day before their pause, they went to Purdue and they crushed the Boilermakers. Now they're not going to be able to continue that momentum. They cannot even practice. They cannot even see each other in person because each individual player must quarantine by himself or herself when you look at the female athletes that have to go through this as well. So very difficult times to go through if you are a University of Michigan student. And in addition to that, there was a tweet that we're going to get to as well, because obviously not everybody is taking this in stride. But I think the bigger issue is, while the University of Michigan appears to be the first to shut down because of this strain, when you see that it's the health department of the state of Michigan that recommends this, you have to wonder, is the UK strain spreads throughout the country? Are there going to be additional entities that decide to shut down, whether it's a university like the University of Michigan, or a conference, or perhaps a league like the National Basketball Association? We have not heard about the UK strain in particular being a problem in some of these other entities. But if it becomes rampant throughout the country, then we could see the British strain coming and taking over the country as perhaps a revenge for the Revolutionary War.
Well, a little known fact, one of the symptoms of the B117 variant is it tends to give you a female British accent. So
dear!
You sound like you have one of the symptoms.
Oh dear!
You said everybody's not taking it in stride. Is that one of the wrestlers or members of the cross country team? Do you have a quote for us?
Yeah, we can put that up there. And the individual was, I believe his name was Miles. Where the heck
Amin.
Yeah, Miles Amin. So here's the tweet that he put out. It's in very small print, so I can read some of it for you. But he says, as you can see, the tweet is headlined by the hashtag Let Us Compete. But a couple of excerpts, he says, we believe that this mandate from the MDHHS is unnecessary and should not only be reconsidered but overturned. And once again, it was not a mandate, it was a recommendation, and Michigan followed the recommendation. He also says placing the entirety of student athletes in a mandated quarantine instead of working it on a team-by-team basis is unfair to the athletes who have followed all protocols necessary to compete and have had no contact with the confirmed cases. These student athletes have gone above and beyond in order to earn the right to have a season in the midst of a pandemic. And then, very importantly, it says at the end, sincerely and respectfully, coalition of student athletes. So while it was Miles Amin who sent out the tweet, it appears that he's got a lot of support from some of the other student athletes at the University of Michigan.
Yeah, and while you talk about saying it wasn't a mandate, it was only a recommendation, The Athletic reported that Michigan did go to the MHD, ASA, whatever it is, and they asked, yeah, that one, that acronym. They asked them if the specific sports that had not tested positive, if they could still go and continue on, and they said no. So like it mandate and recommendation sounds like, you know, they don't mean the same thing, but in this case it seems like they do. But you know, it's not let's say it's not the end of the world. It's not even the end of the season. Like it's a 2-week pause. Villanova had to do longer than a 2-week pause. They were to come back. They're 2-0. I watched them play on Saturday, beat Providence. Now Clemson, they had a long pause. They came back and they're 0-3. This is talking about basketball. So I mean, if this was something where they're saying, oh, that's it, you know, you're shutting down the rest of the year, I'd say, and you didn't have any positive tests, and you're talking about the basketball team, I could see where you might pop up and be like, hey, what the hell? You know, we did everything. Like, I know that they're doing that in high school right now because they had been doing everything right. Now they're shutting them down. You know, you keep getting jerked back and forth when you're in high school, which is really frustrating. But I say just 2 weeks. I know it can throw everything off kilter. I want to watch Michigan basketball and the rest of it, but since it is 2 weeks, like I know they're doing everything to compete safely, and it seems like they've done a good job. I don't know why they didn't quarantine this person that came back from the UK. If somebody's responsible for that when you're doing everything safely, but you know this is a health crisis, and you know you got to take that part seriously. And 2 weeks isn't going to be the end of the world. That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there like Amin, people that are in the athletic department, athletes that would co-sign this, or fans that are watching this show, I think a lot of them focus too much on the little picture, and they say, well, we've done everything right, therefore let us play. I follow the COVID-19 protocols, let me play. My teammates have, let me play. But this is not like if a parent says, if you go clean up your room, then you can go to the park today. You know, if 1 or 2 people slip up, even accidentally, then it screws up things for everybody. This would be like a parent saying, if you clean up your room and every other kid does in the entire county, then it's safe enough to go to the park. And if 1 or 2 kids don't clean up their room, then nobody can go to the park. And that's what the Wolverines are experiencing right now. They got, I think it was 5 cases out of the 8,000 or so tests that they had that tested positive, not just for coronavirus, but for this particular variant. And because this is more contagious, you don't want this to start spreading throughout the community, because all that talk about numbers going down in the state of Michigan and Big Gretch saying that we can open up restaurants and bars next week, all these numbers that are saying that throughout the country they're starting to go down. If you get a more contagious strain, then guess what? The numbers are going to go back up, and we're still sitting around thinking, when are we going to get fans? When are we going to have to stop wearing masks? When are we going to stop doing this, that, and the third? The numbers have to go down. So I get that Amin has been doing the right thing, and I take his word for it, but we can't allow this to continue to spread.
No, who knows? By this time next month, maybe it'll be canceled, and everybody will be wearing 2 masks. So I don't know. Me too. Let's go to the 5th chapter.
Okay. You have any feedback, or you want to go straight to the 5th?
We're going straight to the 5th.
All right, let's do so. And that takes us to the major wager. Obviously, a lot of folks had an opportunity to cash in legally on mobile sports betting from your home. Dennis, remind everybody what you bet on over the weekend, and particularly on Thursday, and what you're thinking about right now.
Well, I love the Packers and the Chiefs, and you saw how that went. So that didn't go so good for me. I juiced out. I do have a free voucher coming up with the NBA tonight that I'm using, that I'm looking forward to. Picking 8 players. We're going to see how that goes. But I'm looking at doing something that I did on Sunday Night Football a lot this year, and that was in daily fantasy, just picking the one team. You get like a boost. You get 1.5 times the points on whoever your MVP is, then you pick another 4 players. And if you go through right now on FanDuel, You can get Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey. I took Butker and Gronkowski. I can't think that you can come up with a better 5 than that. So I'm rolling with that in the Super Bowl. And little tease here a week out. No, it's 3.5. I'm pressing on the Chiefs to take down the Bucs, but it's one of these situations again where I don't think I'm going to bet it because I want the Bucs to win.
Yeah, on Thursday I had the Buccaneers winning, but that wasn't my major wager. My major wager for Sunday was the Packers. I also on Saturday had a major wager for Dustin Poirier, and that certainly cashed in. And then Friday I think I picked the Red Wings Blackhawks over 6 goals. That was an under, so that was not a good one.
I was watching that one for you.
Yeah, I think there were only 5 goals scored, so came up short on that one. But tonight, and I did tweet this out before the show, I went with a little bit of Maction. Your alma mater, the Eastern Michigan Eagles, are atrocious. And the Akron Zips are the second best in the MAC. And it was a 10.5-point spread, so I picked Akron to cover at home. And I do have an update right now in the second half. Akron is up 52-28. So you might not be happy about the outcome, but if people were following me on Twitter at BChap Sports and they took my advice, it looks like you're going to be cleaning up on some action. And I will say this: I had a free bet from one of the casinos because they keep on giving about all these free bets. It was a $100 free bet. I put it on Akron to cover, and it looks like I'm going to be cleaning up. That's my stimulus check.
That's not very true EMU of you.
Well, it's true Akron of me. How about that? I don't have any allegiance. Just give me the money.
Jelinek took the Bills. I remember he sent me a text over the weekend where he Bills +3, Packers -3. The first weekend of legal betting did not go well for him.
He's broke.
All right. He's got to start following our recommendations.
Yeah.
We'll have a major wager coming up for you on Thursday, and we will see if the decks are cleared, things are looking good here for sports, or other universities following Michigan's. I think Michigan State's supposed to be back in action, so we'll be able to get into that on Thursday's Fifth Chapter. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Brian Jelinek, and for Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithian. We will talk at you on Thursday at 7:30. Good night.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, but people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Huh. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man.